Guys, hello and welcome to today's Talk Sober call. Hopefully you can hear me okay, and hopefully we can get this little miniature box thing out of the way and get everything going here. Let's see if I can move these comments and get everything going. Today what we're going to be doing is talking about the alcoholic and the obsession of the mind and compulsion in the body. We're going to be going over letter number 2 of the 30-letter series that talks about how to stop drinking. Now, again, we are not doctors. We are not trained professionals. We're just showing you what has worked for us in our sobriety, and hopefully that'll work for you, and hopefully this screen will work as well. Let's see. I'll just put that over there. That should do the trick. Let's see. There we go. That should do the trick. So we're going to go ahead and get started. If you do not have these letters, I would highly recommend going over to talksober.com and pick these letters up. There's 30 of them we'll send to you over the course of a couple of days, or 30 days rather, and you can read them, and the goal is to kind of walk you through it. I wrote these in a way to say, hey, you know what, if you're struggling with alcohol, if you're struggling with getting sober, I think this will help you. Again, we're not doctors. Whenever you're trying to get sober or quit any type of substance, or anything like that for that matter, I would always advise go to a doctor, tell them what's going on, get some help, right? That way you know what's going on. And, you know, those doctors, they know what they're talking about. So go to them, check it out.
Yep.
But this is more for the mental stuff, right? This is going to help you once you get past that initial heap of getting sober, right? Everyone can get sober. This is going to help you learn to stay sober, because what I've found and what Terry has found over here is this is a mind game, right? It's a total 100% mind game, and it's very difficult to deal with because there's all kinds of things going on. You know, we're going to talk about that. So, Terry, we're going to go ahead and read this. I think this is one of the longer letters.
Yeah.
So if you want to read part of it, and I can read part of it, or I can read it all, and then we can discuss it, what works for you?
Go ahead and read it all, Marcus, because it's
All
from
right.
the heart.
Okay, yes, I wrote these, so it'll be a little different me reading it. Okay, so this is letter number 2, Obsession of the Mind and Compulsion in the Body. Dear friend, before I became an alcoholic, I had always prided myself on my strength of character, my belief system, and my personality. That is to say that I was so strong in some areas of my life that I thought I could not be changed or even waver from the core principles and beliefs that I had. But there's always something that was curious to me, which was how, at the end of a certain extreme circumstances, a person can come out almost unknowable. That is, a person going in could be loaded with beliefs, moral character, a witty personality, and an overall positive outlook on life. And then after going through some kind of situation like torture, isolation, prison, severe depression, they would almost be unrecognizable to their loved ones. This was very interesting to me because it relies almost completely on something we cannot control, the situation in which we find ourselves. It's like a young man who gets so lost in a new romantic relationship that all he can do is think, feel, and act to please his newfound lover. He is so blinded by love that he is unable to see any fault in her or any changes that are happening to himself. I remember this very well. When I was about 20 years old, and I used to be a gospel street preacher, so strong in my faith and beliefs that I stood on the street corner and preached to thousands of people till the early hours of the morning, spent my days running Bible studies and counseling people in the faith. And one night, a young woman came to me and asked me some Bible questions. One thing led to another, and we started a relationship. At this time, I was unable to see how this relationship started to affect my personality. I withdrew from my normal group of people and spent more time with my new friend. As time went on, my preacher friends did not like that I was in this new relationship, and as they thought it was ungodly. This frustrated me and caused me to isolate even more and cling tighter to the new relationship. Over the course of a few months, many things changed. I was unable to see the changes happening in real time, and I wasn't able to control my emotions, thoughts, or feelings. As time passed by, I ended up leaving the preaching group and starting a new life with my new partner. Still to this day, 18 years later, it's hard to even remember some of those parts of my personality and life from back in the preaching days because they had changed through the power of the situation. Being an alcoholic is a lot like this. At first, your relationship with drinking is casual and fun. Your deep-rooted thoughts and cares and anxieties and fears seem to melt away when you spend time with your drink. And it works. She gives you the escape you've been looking for your entire life. Finally, you can be so consumed with something, someone else, that you just disappear. With my relationship with the woman who I'm now married, things started out like this. Even though I was a preacher and I seemed to have it all figured out, there were certain areas of my life I wanted to hide from, certain quote-unquote sin, if you want to give it that name, that I didn't want to come to grips with. And instead of thinking about the issues that were causing dis-ease in my mind, I was able to think about someone else and obsess about our relationship and our future together. I was consumed with someone else's feelings, thoughts, desires. I found a perfect place to hide. But over time, certain changes started to happen, some good, some bad. With alcohol, this gets a lot worse. Once you are hypnotized and caught in the trap of alcoholic hysteria, it is unable to see which way is up, which way is down, and who you were before you began. It's like a ship lost at sea being tossed to and fro. When you look through a close-up camera, you see the ship rocking violently back and forth, up and down, taking on water with no direction, nowhere to turn. Your body being thrown around like a rag doll caught in the jet stream of a 747, and you see no way out. You are in the situation, and the situation has become you. However, if we were to put the camera on a helicopter, I got a camera here, we could use this for a prop. If you were to take and put the camera on a helicopter, then, well, I lost my place here. If you were to take and put the camera on a helicopter or a plane or even a satellite, you'd be able to see that you're just a few miles off the coast. In a few hours, you could rest your weary legs and your tired mind on the strength of dry land and safety. But you can't see your way out when you're in the situation. Much like when you get angry at someone. Say someone hits your car because they were being a dumbass and texting while driving, which no one should ever do. And instantly, that switch flips, and you are consumed with rage and consumed with anger at this person you didn't even know before, because he put your life in danger by texting and driving. And now, your brand new car is all jacked up, and it's his fault. And you're right. You are completely justified with those feelings. But are you in control? Are you thinking, speaking rationally? The facts remain. He could have hurt you, but he didn't. Your car's messed up, but it'll get fixed. And you don't know. Perhaps he's a doctor and the text was for some ER thing and he had to be there to save someone's life. Who knows? The point here is that somehow, some way, you were allowed someone else to flip your switch. And so it is with alcohol. You are allowing a chemical to flip your switch and control your thoughts, feelings, desires, and behavior. Much like that relationship that hijacked your affections, alcohol has hijacked your mind. And you didn't even see it coming. You might not even see it now, because you're on the ship and the camera is zoomed in on you. It may be hard to see dry land. It may be impossible to see a way out. You feel trapped, unsafe, hopeless, helpless, a victim of another thing done to you. Imagine driving a car where the windshield is nothing but a rearview mirror. You can't see what's coming, only what has been. You cannot properly react to life as it's coming, only after the events have already passed. You cannot see what street you're on, where to turn, or what's coming next. You might as well not be in the driver's seat, but there you are, trying to drive. When I was active in my addiction, I wish someone had told me that life didn't have to be this way. I wish someone was there to show me that dry land and stable ground was just a few miles away. I wish someone had taken the time to explain to me what was going on so that I didn't have to wonder what's wrong with me, or why am I so weak, or why does this drink ruin my life. That is what I'm going to give you with these letters, a way out. And again, you can get these at talksober.com. A way out, a solid ground up high enough that you can see the situation for what it is, a situation, nothing more, nothing less. You have found yourself caught up in a situation where alcohol has taken over, where you cannot see what's really going on, what is really at stake, or how to get out of it. I'm going to pull back the curtain and show you what's really going on so that you can stop being in the situation and start looking from the outside in. Here is what's really going on. Over years and years of repeated drinking, your mind now clings to alcohol as your go-to situation for any problem, upset, or speed bump that crosses your path. After all, alcohol worked wonders at first. It was fun. Some of it tasted pretty good. It was socially acceptable, and it made you the person you wanted to be. No fear, no anxiety. You feel all right. But over time, it turned on you. More was needed to get the same feeling. You tried and tried to moderate just to have enough to ease your worries, but that didn't work. You have started to have to drink, not because you wanted to, but because you had to. And now you feel like shit. You're jittery. Your thoughts race endlessly. You're anxious. You try to escape the hangover feeling, but nothing helps. But more alcohol. And it doesn't really help all that much anymore. You just don't know a better way. I'm here to tell you there is a better way, and it lies just outside the realm of your focus right now. We need to put the camera higher up, and bam, there it is. It's a new way of life, a focused, deliberate, on-purpose life, where the rearview mirror has been replaced with a brand new glass windshield, and you're no longer going through life reacting to what comes your way, but calculating and responding. And you realize that no matter what happens, no matter how much craziness is out there beyond the windshield, you can stop the world with just one breath, one pause, one moment. You are in control, not alcohol, not your racing thoughts, but you, being in the moment, allowing yourself to feel. You realize that you can go drink whenever you want, but you no longer have to. So you no longer really want to, because that leads to the endless cycle that started this whole thing in the first place. You are now ready to live a new life, breathe a new breath, and experience sobriety. Right now, it seems like so much needs to be done. You got to fix this. You got to fix that. You got to deal with issues. Personal, relationship, money, houses, jobs. Where are you going to start? Marcus, you don't understand how jacked up my life is right now. Every time I turn around, someone drags me back into the crap and keeps me stuck. Work, family, money. It never stops. It never goes away. Now, believe me, I understand how you feel. I understand how tough it can be, and I know what it's like to be constantly haunted and followed by thoughts, obsessions, worries, and stress. After all, that's the core of what addiction is. You might feel like you're alone, but we've been there before. An obsession of the mind and compulsion in the body. This is what it is. Again, we're not doctors, so take this with a grain of salt and seek out medical consult if you're dealing with anything. But this is how we understand it. Obsessive compulsive disorder, OCD, is characterized by repetitive, unwanted, intrusive thoughts, obsessions, and irrational, excessive urges to do some actions, which are compulsions. You have the obsession of the mind, compulsion in the body. And although people with OCD may know that their thoughts and behavior don't make sense, they're often unable to stop them. Now, I'm not one for liking to put a name on something or say someone has got this issue or whatever, but I do know what it's like to have an obsession of the mind and a compulsion to drink. I also know that what you are experiencing right now is nothing more than a situation. I like to look at it as a form of hysteria. Think of the child who gets overwhelmed and does not know how to deal with emotions, thoughts, feelings, and urgings. For her, doing these things are rough, they're real, they're imploding, and there's an impending sense of doom. Now, her daddy knows that everything's going to be okay. But in the moment, she cannot hear you. She cannot see a way out. She's consumed by these feelings and thoughts and sees no real way out. All she can do is scream and break down. And to her, it is real. It's truth. It's what is right now, and she cannot get out. This is what happens in a society that is taught to believe that these things are real. Getting an F on a test or not making a pile of cash is real and bad and horrible, and there's no recovery for that. To this poor child, she cannot see that it's just an act, and we are all playing our parts. As an adult, I know that getting an F doesn't mean I am a failure. It doesn't mean I'm bad at a certain subject. It just simply means I didn't remember some stupid shit that my teacher thinks I need to remember, and if I remember it, I get ahead in society. That's all it is. It's when we take our thoughts seriously that we get into trouble. Our brains are nothing but chemical impulses which we explain via words in our brains. They are neither good nor bad till we make them so. Like when you get the urge to drink, and all you could think about is getting your ass to a bar stool or liquor store so that you can shut the damn mind up. These thoughts were nothing till you put legs on them and made them walk to the bar. I can think things all day. Sometimes I think funny things, serious things, and sometimes, for no reason at all, a thought pops in my head to slap an old lady at the store for no reason. Right? Sometimes these happen. You get silly thoughts. Doesn't mean you have to do anything. Doesn't mean I'm going to do anything. It's just a chemical impulse in the mind. Or I can say, chemicals firing, words firing, doesn't mean a thing. Just random electrical firings in my brain, pairing with random words based on what I see right now. I remember when I used to preach, and there was this verse in the Bible that said, "Take every thought captive," as if it was a war with every single thought. And scientists say that the average person has like 40,000 thoughts a day. That's a lot of thoughts. And that's a lot to keep track of. Now, I no longer think that the Bible is trying to tell us that we need to take every thought captive, because when you let go and accept your mind for what it is, then you don't have to fight anymore. And the funny thing about that, when you stop fighting, the thoughts start to change for the better. You see, for the last 26 years, or however long you've been at this life, your mind has been trained by the outside world. Your situation, your circumstances, your family, and your society has trained you how to think and what you should and should not think about. And we never stop to think about thinking. We just let it happen. And that's okay. But that is also what brought us to where we are today. And on top of that, our thoughts have told us how to feel. It's like when I first started trying to get help for my addiction back in 2012. I went to see a therapist and told her what I was feeling. And she said, "You have anxiety." She said, "You have anxiety." And bam, all of a sudden this fucking anxiety was everywhere. And now that I had a name for it, it showed up all the time. And I was like, there's this anxiety, there it is. And until then, it was just this weird feeling. But now that it had its own life force and name and fear and struggle, and I had to fight with it, which made it even worse, which made me name it even more. And then we had different types of anxiety, social anxiety, eating anxiety, all kinds, because I named it and made it real. Very important. But it wasn't real. It was just a feeling. Repressing feelings make us more sick than the feelings were in the first place. Take a look at how wild and crazy sex thoughts have gotten all over TV and in our lives. We can't get away from it. And that's just what happens when the church tries to repress things rather than just letting it be, because it's a normal thing that happens in life. And even worse, things happen when we try to repress the chemical impulses in our brain that we call thoughts and turn into words, which we judge as good or bad every second they appear. So instead of trying to stop these thoughts, why not just let them be and look at them for what they are? Just electric zaps in our mind, triggering words which are made up by man. One of the most important lessons I had to learn to get and stay sober was that I am not the sum of my thoughts. Right now there's someone saying, "Hey, I feel like I'm about to die," or whatever. One, go get help or call someone that can help you. Yep. And two, realize that we are not the sum of our thoughts. I am not the sum of my thoughts. I'm not the sum of what I've done or what's been done to me. I am simply living here in this moment. This means that what I think about does not equal who I am. Remember the example of how people are changed in extreme situations we talked about earlier? That's an example of where your thoughts can be changed without doing so. Without your doing so. Sure, you can try to get away from it, but soon enough it'll affect you. Would this then make you your thoughts? Are you your mind? Is a starving person who can't help but think about food all day weak or bad because all he can think about is food? Or does he become what is on his mind? Is he now a food? Does he become a slice of pizza because that's all he thinks about all day? If I have a job where I think about numbers and charts all day, do I become a number or a chart? Or am I defined by numbers and charts? Of course not. So while your brain is minding all day, remember that you don't have to mind your brain. You don't have to think about or obsess over everything that comes your way that you don't like. We are more than our thoughts. We are more than our minds. We are more than our brains. In these letters I'm sending you, I will show you how to manage these unwanted thoughts, desires, obsessions, and feelings. You will learn how to accept your thoughts and accept yourself, because today I will show you how your mind came to be what it is today, and how, up till now, your life has been a series of situations that you've found yourself in. And you will learn how you no longer have to live to find yourself in these situations, but can rather be outside looking in. You will start to take things less serious and have more understanding and more forgiveness for yourself as a human being. You are one of 8 billion human beings trying to make your way through life. No better, no worse than any of the other 8 billion, just different and just here. Only instead of just trying to make your own way, you can now be your own way. Rather than acting as a human doing things in life, you can just be, and now that will be okay. I used to think that I had to do to become, but I learned that I was it all along. I was what I wanted to be, and I had what I was searching for. I'm going to show you how to find that in yourself. You see, our society has taught us that doing and achieving and buying and owning is what life is all about. And this is because they like to sell stuff. I know, I'm a marketer. Well, I'm no longer buying it, and neither should you, because it's all a big marketing ploy. The fact of the matter is that we have innate value just because we are. Everyone listening, everyone not listening, has value. Let's see. If not, he, she, or whatever wouldn't have created us. And since he created us, we are. And we don't need to do. We just need to be. And rest in the timeless wonder that is life. Out of that place of rest and acceptance is where love is. Where we can do our daily tasks and live in the world. But if we try to flip this around as I did for so long, do, then rest, so I can be, then you're not living from a place of power and enough. You're coming from a place of lack. And when you try to fill that lack, life is empty. And all you're doing adds to nothing because you're not being you. You're acting you. Don't get me wrong. We are not on a quest to find ourselves or find meaning in life. That's already there. We are about recognizing it for what it is and living out of that space. With that said, you cannot outthink this problem because this problem is created by thinking. So many people try to outthink drinking, and you can't because it's a thinking problem. As Alan Watts said, a person who thinks all the time has nothing to think about except thoughts. So he loses touch with reality and lives in a world of illusion. If all you're doing is thinking thoughts and hearing words, you can never experience life on a real plane. I can drive around naming all kinds of trees and terms about trees, but until I sit under the shade of a tree and lean against the bark and touch the leaves, I never experience a tree. Learning about something and naming something is completely different from experiencing it. And you have experienced what it's like to be in the grips of alcohol addiction. And I want you to experience what it's like to be sober and live and be the you that you're meant to be. Learning about sobriety and addiction, mental illness and hysteria means nothing until you experience the 2-foot drop that takes it from your mind to your heart and creates a new belief system and a new way of life for you. Once you experience this in sobriety, things will never be the same again. They haven't for me. They haven't for Terry. You will live a new life because you are the new life. This is one of those great paradoxes where you cannot find it by searching for it, and you cannot have it by desiring it. It does not work that way because something is in the way. Your desire. Trust me on this. It may not make sense now, but it will. Desiring a better life is the very thing stopping you from getting it. Stay sober today. If you get the urge, take letter 1 with you and letter 2 with you and read it instead of drinking because your new life is just around the corner. If you do end up caving into your desire, do not read these letters drunk or hungover. Wait, then reread and start again. Stick with me on this. I know how tough it can be. I also know you can make it through. Set a boundary for yourself and remember, today you're not going to drink, even if your ass falls off. Probably not going to happen, but if it does, be ready. That's a metaphor, just like our other metaphor of the old lady analogy, just a metaphor. Remember, tomorrow you can go out and get all messed up if that's what you want to do, but today you're going to stay sober. And if you read these first thing in the morning several times a day if needed, things will start to change for you. Still love you. Tomorrow, when we talk about tomorrow we will talk about how to retrain the reptile brain. It's going to be a fun lesson. See you then, Marcus. That's letter 2. Again, you can get these letters at talksober.com. And now we're going to go ahead and discuss the letter. So, Terry, you want to go ahead?
Sure. Awesome letter, Marcus. That's great.
Thank you.
It really touches on the overthinking that active alcoholism produces. I know for me that was a big thing for me is I would overthink everything. When I was drinking, my overthinking was not so much about the stresses of the everyday life like work and things like that. It was my stress about how to get more alcohol, how to make sure I could drink constantly and not have people call me on it or get caught, and how I could hide alcohol in the house. It was just continual overthinking, and am I going to have to eventually quit? I mean, and it was just constant overthinking. When I finally got sober, I learned that it's just what you said in this letter, which is just be where you are today, be right where your feet are, and try not to stress over things. It's really hard when you first get sober because, well, for me, it's hard. It was hard when I got sober because I'd done a lot of damage. I had a lot I needed to get done, a lot of things to fix, relationships to fix, um, bad things I've done to take care of that I didn't want to take care of,
Yeah.
and it was hard to get through that. Especially some of those things, those bad things that I'd done. That's was one of the reasons I would drink, is to suppress those feelings, and instead of dealing with these things.
Yeah.
And so it was a slow process after I got sober, but now that I've been sober for a while, it's all about now.
Yeah.
I don't I don't I don't shut out the past. I need to know the past. I need to understand that the horrors of the act of alcoholism. But at the same time, I don't try to relive the past. And nowadays, I work on what's happening today, and I try to make some steps towards tomorrow. And that's kind of how I live. That's a great letter, Marcus.
Yeah, it's interesting too because just I think it was yesterday or the day before, something happened, and it was something that 5 years ago I would have been so pissed drunk it wouldn't have been funny, and I would have stewed about it for probably a month. And I
Sure.
was sitting there talking to the person who brought the bad news, and he actually was talking about how his wife was struggling. And I was like, wow, this is kind of interesting. This guy's brought to my house to share some news with me, and I'm not taking it the way that I normally would take it. I'm totally chill about it. And it was a financial type thing. It wasn't like something else. But we have had something else's in my sobriety. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, first of all, this is interesting that this guy wants to learn about, working from home and how to get sober. I'm like, you came to the right house here. Second of all, I turned to him and I'm like, if you would come here 5 years ago, I would have had to have something to drink while you were here because I just can't take this.
Right.
And I was sitting there and I was almost like, snap out of it, Marcus. You're supposed to be pissed off, snap out of it. But I never did because I never had to because, these things, we look at them and we look at them as big deals. But again, it's all stuff that society has put on us. It's all these roles that we play. It's all these
Right.
things that we think. It's all these narrative that we tell ourselves. And it's like we walk around with this backpack of I am this. I'm an angry guy. I'm a happy guy. I'm a righteous person that if you do me wrong, watch out.
Right.
And we don't realize what that does to us. Like I didn't realize that getting mad is not going to change.
Right.
It's not going to change it. Like my one person getting mad isn't going to change it. And I think for me, the biggest thing was, Marcus, you don't matter as much as you think you do.
Right.
Like you don't matter. There's 7.9 billion people on Earth that matter just as much as you. Get
Yeah.
over it, And I hate the whole get over it term because it's kind of like, we hate that term because we don't know how to do it. Like if I was like, get over it and you knew how, you'd be like, oh yeah, okay, I'm going to go get over it. But the problem is we need to pan out. So if you guys are listening and something in this letter really stuck out to you and you want us to discuss it more, let us know. And Terry, if there's little points that kind of stuck out to you or things that you use on a daily basis to stay sober, feel free
Sure.
to share those as well.
There were a couple things that you mentioned. You mentioned accept and acceptance in the letter several times, and that's a huge tool. But yeah, and acceptance doesn't mean you have to accept everything that's going on. We don't have to accept the Middle East crisis, but we do have to kind of realize that it's happening and accept the fact that it's happening, and other things in our life that may not be so great. We have to accept that they're happening so we can try and do something about the things that we have control of doing something over. Yeah, and the anger issue that you just touched on. Here's my little story. I remember once I was commuting home and took a shortcut through Sausalito, and I was trying to get back on the freeway. this guy was on purpose not letting me get on the freeway.
Hmm.
And I was so mad. And I rolled down my window. I was swearing at him. He was swearing at me. He spit on my truck. And finally, I just came over and I made my way in. I was angry for so long. I was just, and, but I realized something at that point. I'm like, what good did getting that angry, what good did that do? Now we just got two angry people on the road. That's all it accomplished. Neither one of us won. It was just stupid. And I remember, a couple months later, I was in a similar area commuting home, and I cut this guy off, and I did really honestly didn't do it on purpose, but he would argue differently, and he was the same thing. He was so mad, and he was yelling at me. I smiled and waved and said sorry, and I was able to let go of it immediately.
Yeah.
Anger for me, and I see it. Anger can it takes up too much space in one's head.
Yeah.
It just becomes, for me, I'm not able to let other things in my mind that might be positive if I'm angry about something. So I try to let it go.
Yeah.
And the way I let it go is having that acceptance, being grateful for what I have, just trying to live in gratitude. And the other thing is like that guy that I cut off and he was so mad. I paused for a second. So I waited, and then because I was ready to start yelling at him back, like, no, I had that lane, whatever. And whether I was right or wrong, that it was beside the point. I did it, and it happened, and I just had to accept it and wait for a second, and then smile and wave and say I'm sorry. And then if he's going to stay mad, that's his problem. Um,
Yeah. It's interesting because a lot of it stems from ego. It stems
yeah,
from us like, I deserve to get on the freeway ahead of you. I deserve this. Um, and it's interesting because we look at this, and I remember a couple months back, and this is well into sobriety, probably 3.5 years sober when this happened. And there was this thread on Facebook, and this guy had the idea of getting people to comment, and it was comment on. And for those that don't know me, I'm like 5 foot tall on a good day, and I dealt with I mean, being 5 foot as a guy, growing up in school the way that I did, where I was very difficult. I mean, I got picked on, I got physically abused, I got everything, and on top of it, I got in trouble for it. Bullies never got in trouble back then. I don't know why. Um, and so this guy posts this thread, and he's like, "Hey, if it was something to the effect of, if you call this to a short girl, what would you call a short guy?" And it was like a 5-page thread of all the insults that I've ever been called. And I was kind of like, "Wow, I need to do something? Are people really this insensitive or whatever?" And I got kind of heated about it, and I thought in my mind I had to do something. Something needed to be done. I need to get on my soapbox and say, "Hey guys, And my wife was like, "Don't say anything. Don't say anything. Don't say anything." And I didn't say anything, and it ended up just kind of going away. And we look at it, and that comes from ego. Like, I don't want my feelings hurt. Now, am I right? I probably am right. They probably should know that what they're doing hurts people. But is it my place to act out of the fear of my ego getting hurt to share that? Or should I do it a different way?
right.
And we really got to look at that, because a lot of times our high horse of I am right keeps us drunk. And that's what mine was. It was like, well, I'm right. This is how the government should run. I've figured it out. No one else has, but I have, right? Which back then, my views are totally different. And I didn't have shit figured out back then. I still don't, but now I kind of have an idea, right? But we look at it, and it's like, I'm right. How's that working for you? You know?
Exactly.
Um,
A lot of
yeah,
times we have to. Yeah, you were talking about the situations, and society has brought us up to where if we're right, we have to stand up for our rights,
yeah,
and we have to fight because we're right. And I don't know. For me, sometimes even if I'm right, I have to think about it and think about, do I want to be right, or do I want to be happy?
yeah.
And I really choose. I try to choose happy.
Well, a
Sometimes
lot of
ego gets to me though. But yeah,
well, a lot of things are interesting too, because we look at in alcohol stuff, you deal with a lot of people who are abused, and currently abused. And for me, I was abused. It wasn't as bad as it could have been. I sit in some rooms and I'm like, wow, I had cake and tea compared to these people.
Sure.
But it was abuse, and I had to look at that. But we look at that, and oftentimes the word acceptance, we feel like that means, well, I accept them, and now they're off the hook, which isn't really what it means at all. What it means is, first and foremost, get yourself safe, get your kids safe.
Yes.
Whatever's happening, like, you don't have to put gas on the fire of anger to get yourself safe, right? Like, if you're in an abusive relationship or whatever, go get out of it, right? Just get out of it. Figure out what you're going to do away. Don't go there and be like, well, I'm right, I'm going to do this, because that's just going to trap you in. And with me, with abuse, I was right, but the only one punished was myself, because I dwelled on it and this and that. And I felt like if I didn't dwell on this, it would somehow make the abuser okay and right,
Right.
which it really didn't. Didn't do anything of the sort except kept me drunk and, ruined my life. And that part wasn't his fault. That's all me. Right? That's me.
Right.
I'm choosing to do this. Can we look at life and say, well, I have the effects of things. Sure, like, I still have trouble eating in front of people sometimes. I still have trouble, with confrontation and things like that sometimes. And that's fine. I could look at that and be like, well, yeah, anyone who grew up the way I grew up is going to have some of these things. But am I going to look at it and say, I own this, this is what I need to do, this needs to be justified, this needs to be right? Because sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes the best course of action is just get away and take care of you.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely makes sense. We always have to take care of our sobriety, and that has to be the number one priority. And a lot of times it's just getting out of the situation. And we got to do what we have to do to maintain our sobriety. Absolutely.
And sometimes, we got to look at it because the power of the situation. This came to me when I was thinking about, like, concentration camps, and I started reading some of the stuff by Viktor Frankl, who was a survivor of, like, Holocaust camps, which I can't even imagine. That's the most horrible thing that ever could be done. I just don't even fathom it.
Right.
But he talks about how things work, and he talks about how people were changed, and how people were just literally changed, and they couldn't help it. And that could work bad and good. Like, it could change for the bad. Like, you look at the Sanford prison experiment, where they put all these people in as an act to act like there was a prison going on. And they were all actors, and they all knew they were actors, and suddenly they forgot. And they started really becoming these people. And the same thing happens with you and I. We go through these things, and life changes us. And it could change for the bad or the good. And, like, the person who might be being abused or might be in a situation that's toxic, or like my brother who needed to get away from working with my dad because it was just a toxic kind of thing. And from what I hear, he's starting to do better now. You can see some of the videos. I don't know if he's completely sober, but he's not fallen over anymore, which is good.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's going to look different for different people.
Right.
And we got to look at that and say, well, the situation was able to help him. And what situation can help you? If you're in a job that you can't stand, is it worth $5,000-$10,000 a month or whatever to be drunk? No,
Right.
it's not. Because your quality of life is down. Your income might be up, but your quality, like me, I was making good income, but my quality of life sucked every day. I hated it. So. All right. So, any questions in the box? Anyone got any issues you want to go over? We got about, I think, 21 minutes left on our call. So, if you guys have stuff, let us know, or we could just keep going on this line of thought if you guys like that as well.
Breaking stereotypes. I'm about to die. What do you mean by that, brother?
Yeah, and just disclaimer also, if anyone feels like that, go get some help, because that's a permanent solution to a temporary problem.
Yeah.
Every problem in life is temporary. every single one. How do I know? Because life's temporary. And you don't want to have, solutions that are not good. Go get solutions that are good. And,
Yep.
I felt that way. Terry felt that way. Sometimes I wanted that to happen, but now I'm like, man, I sure am glad that whatever's out there stopped that from happening.
Right.
Sure glad. At the time, no, I was pissed. I was like, you stopped me. That was my plan. It was a good plan. We stopped. But now I'm like, man, that plan pretty much sucked. You know? I mean, um,
Yeah, it's amazing. Before I got sober, there were all these problems, and I had all these plans that I would never follow through with or anything. And just the amazing thing about getting sober is that got sober, then I was able to think clearly. I mean, it's obvious to most people that when you get sober, suddenly you're thinking clearly, but it wasn't to me at the time. And these problems started to go away. Not quite by themselves, but they went away very easily as far as just taking care of these things and looking at life in a new perspective, trying to take care of situations as they come up, and and working towards a good solution. It's sobriety's awesome.
I think maybe we should talk to the whoever puts the label on alcohol and push for them to put may cause mental illness.
Yeah,
I
there
think
you
that's
go.
a great disclaimer because, that's what it does to some people.
Absolutely.
Some people are able to drink and that's fine and whatever and they can put it down, but for those of us that are here, it might cause mental illness. It might cause some issues. And, we don't want that. We want sober mind. Now, your altered mind is going to tell you that that's what you want. Oh, you need more. You need more. It's not working because you need more. And another thing is alcohol likes to drink. When you have alcohol, it likes to drink, and it might not be you. It might be the alcohol. Thomas has a question there. You want to bring that one up?
Sure, I only drink when I am alone. How can I combat that? Um, well, the obvious answer would be try not to be alone so much. Try to get out there and do things. That's what I tried to do. Um, that was I was an isolation drinker myself as well, and I just ended up isolating more and more and more. And after I got sober, I made sure I wasn't isolated for a very long time at home as much as possible. It was I'd get out there. I went to my hospital meetings. I went to the AA meetings. I got on my bicycle. I went and walked my dogs at a dog park where there's other people, and started to hike a lot. I just started to get busy. I'm
Yeah.
sure I had a lot of alone time anyways because I didn't have a job when I first got sober. I was unemployable, but that's why I was just out there. I constantly tried to do things, and yeah, it's hard. But trying to find other sober alcoholics to hang out with is very helpful because they'll go do things with you. They have the same things that they're fighting as they want to try and avoid their isolation as well. So that's what
And
I suggest.
and remember, if you have internet access, you're kind of never alone. I mean, I know it's not like real people, but we are real people. I'm not a robot. Are you a robot, Terry? I don't
No,
think
not
so.
today.
Okay. Okay. And if there's no one around online or you can't find anyone, there are support groups online you can find. And also watch the videos. Like you could get. Here's the thing: the time that you spend drinking. Let's say you get off work at 7 or whatever. You get home at 7 and you're done with dinner, and it's time 7 o'clock to 11 or whenever you go to bed, and you got this 4 hours where you're alone, and it's like you got 4 hours a day. You can pretty much get a full-on education on whatever you want, and it's kind of fun. Now this is for me. I mean, I'm kind of a geek, so I like this stuff. But my new obsession is learning about things, or trying to understand things, or maybe helping other alcoholics, or talking online if that's what you got to do. Several sites out there, or get out and go to a meeting. If there's not a meeting, start a meeting. Do what you got to do, or whatever. One of the cool things is helping others is a big thing because it gets your mind off yourself,
Yes.
and it kind of shows you, like it reminds you. For me, I like to be reminded of where I came from. I'm like, wow, I like to remember how crappy it was and where I came. Now, I don't like to dwell on it. I don't like to sit there and say, well, that one time I was, I like to just say, wow, this is where I came from. And there's a lot you can do. You can read a book. Oh, well, books are boring. Well, watch TV or something. Um, be careful with football games because if you watch a football game, there's like 900 alcohol ads, and sometimes that's not too good.
But you could try and figure out like go from your passions. I
Yep.
mean, I've always been a cyclist, and the way I help people in that respect is I coach some people for the Leukemia Lymphoma Society. So that's the way I'm kind of taking one of my passions to keep myself busy, to keep helping other people. It helps a lot.
And
Uh,
I think one of the more important things that is very seldom talked about is learn to be okay with yourself alone. This was a tough one. Like when I sat alone, I had to think about my problems. I had to stress about stuff. I had to talk about who was right, who was wrong. And mind you, I'm only talking to me and in my head. And so it was difficult to be alone because I didn't know what it meant to be alone. And I remember I went to people that were trying to help me, and they were like, here's what you got to do. You got to meditate. You got to do this. You got to just be. I'm like, what the hell does that mean? Just be. Well, how do I just be? How do I meditate?
yeah,
Right? These were foreign to me. Like I had to do something. And now I'm okay. Like now I remember before I'd barbecue and I'd, drink while I barbecued. And now I just barbecue. And I'm okay just sitting out there. I got my cigar. That's probably my one vice. But I sit out there and I enjoy time with myself because I've learned to forgive myself and be okay. I'm like,
right.
you know what? It's all good. Everything's okay with the world right now if I don't drink. There's things going on, but right now, I'm okay. Does that make sense, Thomas? Is that helpful, or is that? Let us know, and we'll try to get you going there. Um,
Yeah, it makes sense to me, and
mhm.
but it's funny because I look at how my dad is. My father's he's in the later stages of his life, and he's not real. He can't communicate real well, and he's almost not able to walk. But this is a man that's always been busy. He does stuff constantly, no matter how little of a project it is. He has to constantly move. And I see that in myself. I have a very difficult time just being, sitting. My wife makes fun of me because I can't just sit there and like watch a movie or something like that. I can't do it. I
Yep.
have to get up and do the dishes or
At
go.
least have a rocking chair so you could like slam out of the house. You're like, ah.
Yeah,
My family jokes about that.
it's hard,
Yeah,
but it's life's a learning process, and that's what we try to do.
and you know what? That's cool because
Yeah.
that's how Terry is.
Yep.
And it's cool because this is how Marcus is. And Thomas, that's cool because that's how you are. But you got to realize, hey, you know what? You don't have to drink when you're alone.
Yep.
You don't have to. You don't have to go get it. Do we know anything about neurogenesis? I do not. Can we recommend any free online support group? Yes. What I'll do is I'll do some research because I don't know the ones offhand. On talksober.com, go get these letters, and we'll put a list of some of the online groups. I actually started trying to make one, and if you guys are interested, I can put that back up for you. My thinking was I think it'd be helpful to have a support group that's all on the same page with what we're talking about, because sometimes you'll get stuff that just doesn't jive with you, and since you're watching these, my guess is this probably kind of jives with you as well. But yeah, go to talksober.com, put your name and email in the box. We'll get you a list of those. And also, when you're alone, just watch the videos. You're going to learn a lot, and you'll be able to help a lot of people with what you learn. I was shocked. I was literally shocked when I started seeing people that are like, I've been sober for a year, and all I do is watch your videos. I mean, they obviously live their life, but that's all they're doing for sobriety. And I was like, hey, that's kind of cool. I had no idea that kind of stuff would happen. So yeah, we'll get that. All right. So yeah, we'll take a couple other questions or burning desires, I think they call them. And if you're new, make sure you subscribe. We got a lot of videos on the channel to help you out.
No idea what neurogenesis is.
I don't. I'm gonna have to Google that. I would Google it right now, but it shrinks your Skype, so I want to make sure that's full screen. So I'll have to Google it after. Um, my guess would be the beginning of neuro. I had to guess Genesis and neuro.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, cool. So, anything else to add on that, Terry?
Just for, I say it every webinar, but the most important thing is if you are trying to get sober or you are trying to stay sober, sobriety has to become a priority.
Yeah.
It's for me, that's what I do is um, I don't make sobriety my obsession throughout the day, but I do make it the most important thing I think about when I'm trying to make decisions on what I'm going to do throughout the day. Like, some buddies of mine want to go to the bar tonight. Am I going to go with them? Well, I got to think about that. They're just going to go there to drink? Nah, I think I'm going to pass on that because I know what alcohol will do to me.
Yeah.
And what? Another thing I see is I see people that when they don't make sobriety their priority in life, I've seen people with decades start drinking and they have that one drink and then you don't see them for 5 or 6 years and they come back and say, oh yeah, I had that one drink and then I just went back to my alcoholic insanity immediately. And or some of them will say it took a month or two. I was in control for about a month or two and then it went out of control and
Yeah.
they were gone and they almost died or they had all sorts of the bad things happen to them.
Yeah.
So, sobriety, priority.
Yeah, it's interesting. James says it's your hippocampus healing after not drinking. Okay, cool. I do know about that. I just didn't know what it was called. So kind of interesting. We actually have a video on the Jellinek curve, which is kind of interesting, and it talks about like healing and stuff like that. You want to take Thomas's question there?
Yeah, I do know some binge drinkers as well. A good friend of mine is he's sober and he's a binge drinker too. And did he drink like me? I was a 24-hour a day drinker. I couldn't have it. Couldn't go with even for a few minutes without alcohol in my system somehow.
Hmm.
But him, he would go for same thing, exactly what you're saying, months, weeks,
Yeah, and for
days.
those
No,
listening, Thomas said I'm a binge drinker. I can go weeks without a drink, then I get a taste for it, and then I drink too much, and my binges can last for days, sometimes weeks. Well, I think it's important to remember that I know for me personally, I do like the taste of things. Um, and sometimes you get a craving for a taste. Like today, I wanted good Indian food, and I went and I was expecting good Indian food, and I did not get it good Indian food. I can make better myself, and you know, but we look at that and find something to replace it with. For me, I actually like tonic water, which most people would be like, that's totally gross. But tonic water and ice it gives it that bitter taste, and
yeah,
you know, it works for me. A little bit more sugar than I'd like, but less than soda. But yeah, remember, like, you don't have to give in when you get a taste for it. Like sometimes I get a taste. I remember we were walking somewhere and someone dropped a case of beer, and they always drop it in front of the ex-alcoholic. Like I've never seen a case of beer dropped in front of like a bunch of nuns or something. It just doesn't have. It's like right in front of them. That was a joke, but we look
I
at
was supposed
that.
to laugh.
Yeah, no, I was saying like just in case they.
Oh yeah,
But we look at it, and it gave me a taste for it. Somehow
right.
the rotting beer on the ground in 90-degree weather gave me the desire for alcohol. And, it's like, I don't have to, so what? So I have a desire. And that's one of the things with our westernized culture is we have this idea that we have to give in to our desire. I want a cookie. I go get a cookie. Now I got to have milk. All right, now I got to relax and watch TV. All right, now I want another cookie. Now I need some cake. Now I need that. And who's talking to you? Who cares? Right? Who
Right.
cares? Like, okay, I want to drink. Okay, I've wanted lots of drinks. I've wanted lots of things in life that I haven't gotten. Well, I'm alone again. It's time to. Who says? Right? Who says? And these are all rules that we put in our mind that don't need to be there. And it simply does not matter. Like your thought about, I want a drink, doesn't matter. And here's the thing that'll help you. What I've found is that no matter what's going on, with the exception of totally extreme circumstances that most of us will never or have ever been in, but for most of life, you can pause the world for 15 minutes.
Right.
Right? Get a craving for beer. All right. I heard it. I heard Jill craving. I know what you want. I know where you want to get it. But I'm going to wait 15 minutes. I'm just going to chill. Read something, watch a video. 9 times out of 10, it's going to go away. For the
Yeah.
1 time out of 10 it doesn't go away, give it another 15 minutes.
Right.
And then you're finally going to be like, whatever, it's too much work than it's worth. And that's kind of where I find myself now.
And
Sometimes I'm like,
don't just sit in a chair with nothing to do while you're taking those 15 minutes. Get busy.
yeah.
Do something.
For me, listening to tapes is good.
There you go.
If you guys like listening to me, you can listen to that. On talksober.com, there's other things. And if you like listening to Terry, he's got some good ones too. But if you like listening to things, I'll put a list of them on talksober.com for you, so that you can go through and listen. Like, I know whenever I'm going to go somewhere I know I'm going to get anxiety, I'll listen to a tape and I'll drink something relaxing like tea. Chamomile tea helps. Catnip tea helps. They have all kinds. I mean, they have a whole tea aisle. There's tons of good stuff there. But that seems to help as well.
Did you say catnip tea? I'm
Catnip
sorry.
tea.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's weird. My grandma
Okay.
told me about it years ago, and I was like, "Really? That's a thing?" And some of it doesn't taste very good.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah. But Thomas, the binge drinking can. I know a lot of people that have basically that said they're alcoholics, and all they are is binge drinkers. They had successful careers, and they did the same thing as you did, or that you're doing, which is they have that one drink and then they keep drinking for a while, and then they're able to stop again. What happened with my good friend is he just kept on having accidents, like falling and hurting himself, ending up in the hospital, and they slowly but surely got worse. And he looks back on it now that he's been sober a couple of years, and he's like, some of those times I really could have died, and they just kept on getting worse and worse for him. So he did choose the route to just quit drinking completely, and so he had to develop some tools to be able to stay stopped.
Well, and that's the thing that's interesting too. Is binge drinking is really, in my opinion, is the result of suppression. Right? You're like, good, I'm going to go. I'm going for a week. I'm going for a week. But all the while, you're not dealing with the issue of dealing with your craving. So at the end of the week, you're like, well, I did good, and if I'm going to do bad, I'm going to do real bad. For me, I was bad all the time. I was a binge drinker 24 hours a day, 20,
Yeah.
30 days a month or whatever. And we just have to look at it for what it is and say, well, what is it that you can deal with? How can you understand yourself and not suppress it? Because a lot of alcoholics, they are what I call miserable alcoholics, or what people call like a dry drunk kind of thing, where nothing has changed other than they're pissed off because now they can't have alcohol. I don't think that's what sobriety is meant to be. Sobriety is not meant to take away. It's meant to give back.
Right.
We're not taking away alcohol. Don't take my alcohol away. We're saying, here's a new life in which you're not even going to care about alcohol.
Exactly.
So I think that's important. All right, so we'll take a couple other questions and then wrap her up. But I hope you guys enjoyed this. If you did, give us some comments after it's over. Give us some thumbs up. Give us some comments. Let us know what we could talk about, how we can help you. Go over to talksober.com. Get these letters. And by next week, you should have letter 3. And you can actually review it before we come on live and, have your questions ready. And we'll go through them and try to help you guys get sober. And again, if you're coming off of a binge, if you're a binge drinker, remember it's extremely dangerous. Drinking in excess is extremely dangerous. Go to the doctor, even if you feel like you don't need to go to the doctor, just to check it out, because, alcohol is not good in massive quantities. It's actually, I don't even think it's good in small quantities. The whole wine for your heart has been debunked. So, just go see a doctor just because, it's a good idea. Um, so, yeah. All right. I think that just about wraps us up. Any last minute thoughts there, Terry?
Sure. Just remember that it doesn't matter whether you've gotten sober before and you started drinking again, or anything like that, or if you're just trying to get sober for the first time now, or you're not sure if you even have a problem with alcohol or not. Just try to move forward right now, and just try to stop drinking today. Try to stop drinking tomorrow. Just take it, one day at a time, as they always say. And don't put too much. Don't overthink these things.
Yep.
The main thing is don't drink. That's it.
And we'll close with T-Led. He says, I become violent and I send very bad texts to people which are threatening, and some are sick. I am normally a nice guy sober, but I'm a violent drunk, and I gave it up many times. I'm 9 days sober now. Remember this. Next time you get a craving, if you don't get them, awesome. If you do get them, remember this. One, you could stop your world in 15 minutes. Right? I don't have to do that. Think about going to the bar, 15 minutes. Let's see if I still want to go after that. Next, you're stewing about something, and you've been 9 days sober, which is awesome. Congratulations.
Yep.
Awesome. But you're still stewing about what you did when you were drunk a long time ago, at least 9 days ago. Now,
Right.
the drink is going to last 3-4 hours, maybe a night. Right? Then you're going to wake up and you're going to feel like crap about what you did before. So what's happening is you're taking all this energy to get this tiny little bit of payoff, quote unquote payoff. It's not really a payoff for all this bad. And really look at it and say, is it worth it? Right? Is it really worth becoming the person I don't want to be for a little tiny bit of relief that isn't even real relief? And remember that, and, let 9 days turn into 10, and 10 turn into 30 and 90 and years, and learn to live sober. And I think you probably are a good guy, and stay a good guy by staying sober. So I hope you guys like this, and I hope you guys got a lot of good information. I hope you got some things you can take with you. Go over to talksober.com. We are starting a group for those of you that are looking for a group to kind of be with if you're alone all the time or you need help. There is a group we're starting there. You can find out information on that. There is a small charge for the group. It's less than you spend drinking. However, if you feel that you need the group and that's what's stopping you from getting sober and you cannot afford it, contact us and we will cover that for you on a need-by-need basis. If you can't afford it, go for it. That'll help other people as well. But I think it'll really help you start. And it's like a classroom where you go in and you learn to get sober. That's going to be at talksober.com. You can get all the information. You can get the letters free. And let's all help each other stay sober one day at a time, 1 minute at a time. And not by taking away alcohol, but adding to our life.
That's right.
Thanks for joining us, Terry. Thanks. And we'll see you guys next week. I think next week is Thursday, 11 a.m., I believe. It might be Friday. I'll have to check. So thanks again, and we'll see you next time.
All right. Thank you.